The Christmas party was a spectacle even the city's elite had to admire. Golden chandeliers hung from the soaring ceiling of the ballroom, their light refracting off the polished marble floors and glinting off the designer gowns and tailored tuxedos of the guests. The scent of pine mingled with expensive perfumes, and the soft hum of conversation blended with the delicate notes of a live string quartet in the corner. Waiters in crisp black uniforms floated silently through the crowd, offering trays of champagne and hors d'oeuvres that looked more like art than food. Clara stood near the grand staircase, her fingers grazing the cool banister as she scanned the room. Her deep red velvet gown clung to her in all the right places, but she felt none of the glamour surrounding her. The laughter, the chatter, the clinking glasses, they all seemed distant, like echoes from someone else's life. Her husband, Richard, moved among their guests with effortless charm, shaking hands, exchanging pleasantries, and basking in the admiration that followed him wherever he went. He looked every bit the perfect husband, the perfect billionaire host, but Clara knew how hollow it was. She adjusted the delicate clutch hidden beneath her arm, feeling the weight of the divorce papers tucked inside. Tonight, she would end it. The thought both terrified and relieved her. The world saw a woman enjoying a luxurious party, but beneath the sparkling facade, Clara's heart was breaking. No one could see the storm behind her carefully poised smile. She watched Richard laugh at something one of the guests said, his hand brushing briefly against hers as he moved past. A flicker of the old connection she had once felt surged in her chest, only to be immediately replaced by resolve. Years of arguments, silent dinners, and cold indifference had led her to this moment. And there was one thing he didn't know, one secret that would forever remain hers until she chose to reveal it: she was pregnant. The thought of holding this truth close made her stomach twist with fear and anticipation. She took a deep breath, letting the music and chatter wash over her, forcing herself to appear calm, composed, untouchable. Tonight, among the glittering lights and polished smiles, she would reclaim her life. Tonight, no one would stand in her way, not even Richard. Clara slipped away from the swirling crowd, the noise of laughter and clinking glasses fading behind the heavy velvet curtains. In this small, dimly lit corner of the grand ballroom, she finally allowed herself a moment of solitude. The warmth of the room felt distant now, replaced by a cold clarity that settled over her chest like a stone. She unfolded the divorce papers, her fingers brushing the crisp, official edges, and felt the weight of every decision she had made leading to this night. Her reflection in the tall mirror across the wall startled her. The woman staring back was composed, flawless in appearance, but her eyes betrayed the storm raging inside. Trembling, she pressed a hand to her chest, feeling the subtle flutter of life growing within her. The realization of her pregnancy had hit her weeks ago, bringing with it both terror and hope. Richard had no idea. He was blind to anything that didn't revolve around him, too focused on power, on wealth, on appearances. This secret, this small miracle, was hers alone. She thought back to the nights spent arguing, the cold silences at dinners, the crushing realization that love had long since left their marriage. And yet, despite the pain, she had clung to hope that she could finally claim a future that was hers to define. Her heart ached, but her resolve hardened. Tonight, she would take control. Tonight, she would step out of the gilded cage that had become her life. A soft chime from the grand hall reminded her that the party continued, oblivious to her inner turmoil. Laughter, music, the swirl of champagne glasses, it all seemed like a distant dream. Clara pressed the papers to her chest for a moment, whispering a quiet promise to herself and the child she carried. No one would take this moment from her. No one would dictate her fate. She straightened her back, smoothed her gown, and took a slow, deliberate breath. The storm of fear and sorrow still pulsed through her, but beneath it lay a core of steel. When she returned to the party, she would walk with grace, even as she signed away the past. Every step forward would be a declaration. She was no longer a pawn in Richard's world. She was about to carve out a life of her own, and it would begin tonight, with this act of courage, tears hidden only briefly by her porcelain mask. Richard finally appeared, as if drawn by instinct to her secluded corner. He smiled, the kind of effortless, practiced charm that had once made her heart skip a beat. "Clara, there you are," he said, his voice smooth, warm, completely unaware of the storm brewing in her chest. He took her hand in his for a fleeting moment, a gesture meant to comfort, or perhaps claim, yet she barely felt it. Her fingers trembled as she reached into her clutch and pulled out the papers. She could see the confusion flicker in his eyes the moment he glimpsed them. "What's this?" he asked, trying to mask surprise with casual indifference. But Clara's resolve did not waver. She met his gaze, steady and unflinching, and took a deep, shuddering breath. "This is the end," she whispered, almost to herself. Her hand moved deliberately, signing her name on the final line. The pen scratched across the paper, each mark a quiet rebellion, each curve of her signature a declaration of independence. Tears pricked her eyes and spilled down her cheeks, but she refused to stop. These were not tears of defeat, they were tears of release. Every moment of fear, every long night of quiet suffering, poured onto the page. Richard leaned closer, squinting at the documents, trying to understand, but missing the weight behind them entirely. "Clara, are you serious?" he asked, his voice tinged with disbelief. She handed the pen back to him, her hand steady now despite the racing of her heart. "It's done," she said, her voice firm, yet soft enough to carry the tremor of emotion beneath. He looked at her, the sparkle of arrogance still in his eyes, completely oblivious to the secret she carried inside her, the life growing quietly, hidden beneath her carefully chosen gown. He thought this was simply the end of their marriage. He had no idea that in leaving him, she was also protecting the future of their unborn child. For a moment, the grand hall's laughter and music seemed to fade entirely. There was only the crackle of tension, the unsaid words hanging between them like fragile glass. And then, as if to remind them both of the world outside their small corner, a soft chime of the piano drifted from the ballroom. Clara felt a strange sense of serenity wash over her. The act was done, and with it, the first true step toward reclaiming her life. Richard excused himself, still confused, still unaware. Clara straightened her back, lifted her chin, and allowed herself a small, victorious smile. Freedom, she realized, sometimes arrives wrapped in tears. The party continued unabated, a swirl of laughter, music, and clinking glasses filling the grand ballroom, yet Clara felt completely detached from it all. She had signed the papers, ended the marriage, and taken the first bold step toward freedom, but the secret nestled in her womb was hers alone. She placed a gentle hand over her belly, feeling the subtle flutter of life that no one, not even Richard, would ever take from her. The warmth of the moment mixed with the cold night air that drifted through the slightly open balcony doors, sending a shiver down her spine. For a fleeting moment, fear gripped her chest. What would it mean to raise this child alone? Could she face the whispers, the stares, the judgment of the world outside this opulent bubble? But then she remembered the years spent trapped in a marriage devoid of love, respect, and understanding. She remembered the nights she had cried silently, waiting for Richard to notice, waiting for him to care. And she realized, her life, and the life growing inside her, deserved more than what he could ever give. The snow began to fall outside, dusting the city in pristine white, each flake reflecting the glow of the Christmas lights strung along the streets below. Clara stepped onto the balcony, letting the quiet serenity of the night envelop her. The chill bit at her cheeks, but she welcomed it. It reminded her that she was alive, that she was choosing life on her own terms. She imagined the future. Quiet mornings with a child's laughter filling the rooms, the warmth of a home built on love and hope rather than wealth and control. Richard had no idea. He thought tonight was merely the end of their marriage, oblivious to the secret she carried, oblivious to the strength she had summoned to take this step alone. And in that ignorance, Clara found her power. She had not just walked away from a failing marriage, she had walked toward a future she could shape herself, a life filled with possibility. The city lights shimmered beneath her like a field of stars, each one a tiny promise of what lay ahead. Clara's lips curved into a small, bittersweet smile. Tears still lingered at the corners of her eyes, but they no longer carried sorrow, they carried hope. Freedom had a taste she had never known, and it mingled with the quiet thrill of anticipation for the life she would now create. She pressed a hand over her belly once more and whispered a soft vow. This was the beginning, not the end, of everything. The Christmas lights flickered as if in agreement, and Clara took a deep breath, stepping back into the warmth of the party, but carrying the secret, the power, and the hope of a future entirely her own.